Welcome to the latest episode of the Real World Nutrition Podcast. This is episode 168, Staying Connected During the Holidays, the Wellness Benefits of Social Connections. Hi everyone, welcome to the latest episode of the Real World Nutrition Podcast. I am your host, Shelly Royale, registered dietitian nutritionist, and this is one of those episodes where people might wonder, why is a dietitian talking about social connections during the holidays? Well, if you've been listening for any length of time to these podcasts, you know that it isn't always 100% nutrition related, but expanding on the overall wellness aspects and the many things that of wellness encompasses in our lives, from social wellness and self-care and stress management. And while I touch on mental health issues because that is not my area of expertise, this mental health issues and mental health does have a role with nutrition, or more specifically, nutrition does have a role in mental health. And I do need to clarify, of course, nutrition isn't going to cure or cause mental health issues, but it can certainly exacerbate or minimize some situations. So, of course, as this is recording, as I'm dropping it, it is right before Christmas, right before New Year's, and all the things that go along with it this year. So, I just want to acknowledge, of course, not everyone celebrates Christmas, and it is impossible to avoid it. So, even if you do not observe nor celebrate Christmas, it is all around you. So, the environment in which we live, you're going to have things where stores are closed or there's a lot of things going on around the holidays, even if that doesn't directly involve your life, it does indirectly. So, this is again one of those areas that is talking about staying connected during the holidays, staying healthy with regard to your mental health and your overall wellness during the holidays. So it can be full of joy, but also stress, loneliness, or busyness. And our relationships that we have can impact not just our mental health, but also our physical well being. So, why do social connections matter? And how can we find balance between meaningful relationships and self care during the holidays? So, starting off, why social connections matter for health? Well, there is an abundance of research on social connections. And I looked at the various research studies and thought I was going to provide links, but there are so many, there's so much information and research on social connections and our health that it would be impossible to include them all. But I'll just tell you, if you want to look it up, just do mental health and social connections and how that helps. So, studies show meaningful social connections can help reduce stress and improve mental health. It can strengthen the immune system, which seems like it's out there, but it does have a connection. Can lower the risk of chronic disease like heart disease. And we know that heart disease and stress are very closely linked, but it has other aspects. Improve longevity and overall happiness. So these are some fabulous things that social support can help us with year round, of course, but especially during the holidays, it can help buffer the stresses we may have. So that could be just getting together and having the laughter. I don't know about you, but it's almost impossible to not be with people in my social group and not be laughing about something at some point, even in some of the saddest situations. We can have great experiences with shared meals or celebrating traditions. And these moments can have an emotional connection that can help us recharge. So there may be times where you're like, I don't want to go out, but you do, and you're happy that you did, or you don't want to get together with somebody, but then you're happy that you did. So, some of these challenges during the holidays is so real. So, sometimes my friends and I joke with each other about how we have to look months in advance in our calendars to find a time where we can get together. So, the challenges during the holidays is despite the importance of connection, the holidays can present those challenges because of the packed schedules that seem to appear. And it may not be that your schedule is changing, but that you just have to compress things into less time as things may be closed or there's vacation time. So those packed schedules can make it hard to have some meaningful get togethers or time for relationships. And then loneliness. For some, this time can amplify feelings of isolation. And I'll just mention, I saw this story on the news the other night, and it's about men who have loneliness. So they can be in a relationship, they can have a partner, a spouse, but they don't have close friends, and that can lead to loneliness. So, of course, if you're in a committed relationship and you have a spouse or partner, yeah, that's a positive aspect from that. But there are times where you want to decompress with a different person and have a relationship with somebody else, girlfriends or friends in general, where you can confide in them. Then we have during the holidays all these obligations, or at least it seems like it. Social events can feel overwhelming, leading to stress or burnout. And this year, as I'm recording this in 2024, we had a very short length of time between Thanksgiving and Christmas this year, and it's going to happen again next year. So while December 25th is always when Christmas happens, of course, and November, January 1st is always when New Year's happens. When Thanksgiving tends to be later in the month, of course, it feels like there is less time because some people just only think of the holidays at the Thanksgiving time. So, first thing is acknowledging these challenges. Yes, these are real challenges. Don't push it to be able to do things before Christmas. And one of the companies that I contract with, we almost, as long as I've been with them, our holiday party has always been in January. Always. Because it's just too ridiculous to try to fit something else in December. So let's talk about practical and realistic tips for staying connected during this time of year. So, number one, prioritize the quality over quantity. So, you do not need to attend every event. Focus on those meaningful connections with the people who lift you up, the people you enjoy being with, the people you look forward to seeing. So, for example, spend one on one time with close friends or family instead of going through a whole bunch of large gatherings. And if there's one or two people in that large gathering you want to see, maybe see them in a different setting. Number two, set boundaries. It's okay to say no to obligations that drain you. And this is a phrase I've been using a lot this year. Protect your energy. So protect your energy for relationships that truly matter. And if you don't quite know what protect your energy means, it's really protecting yourself from those things that drain you. So this year, I've made a conscious decision to not watch news very often. I do want to be connected with what's going on, but it was really causing a lot of stress for me. So to protect my energy, I set the boundary of just watching, the one national news, not having it on the 24-hour news channel, for example. So that's an example of protecting energy. So set those boundaries, decline events when needed. And again, suggest alternatives like a casual coffee meetup or even just a phone call. And number three, stay present in those social moments. So be mindful and intentional during gatherings. So put away distractions and engage in conversations fully. And I find it terribly annoying and just insulting when people are constantly picking up the phone. Oh, I need to check this. I need to check this. Oh, who's at my front door right now? Oh, who's doing this? Oh, is somebody important texting me? And it's 99% of the time not an emergency. So practice active listening or asking questions that encourage deeper connections. Number four, balance connection and self-care. So social wellness doesn't mean saying yes to everything. Self-care allows you to show up fully in relationships. So balance that connection, balance the self-care. So you can schedule downtime, enjoy a quiet evening, or engage in activities like yoga or meditation or one of the many apps that help you with calming and meditation to recharge. So again, you don't have to say yes to everything. For the first time in years, I'm thinking probably more than 20 years, my husband and I have made a decision that we are just going to stay home for New Year's. We're not going to go out to dinner or do anything where we're fighting reservations and all the dressing up and that sort of thing. I love doing that. And this year we made that decision to just take it easy, not worry about it. And the dogs will be happier for it, especially when the fireworks start. All right. Number five, combat loneliness. So for those who feel isolated, especially this time of year, consider these ideas. Reach out to old friends or family members with a message or a call. So if they're long distance or it's been a while since you've seen them and you're not necessarily invited to be part of it, still just sending a message is fine. And I acknowledge sometimes those old friends or family members are no longer around to message or call. So here's another thing, is volunteer in your community for a shared purpose and connection. So yes, there are many things that we can do year-round to volunteer in a community. And there's lots of places that will accept volunteers on Thanksgiving, Christmas, and this time of year. And whatever you are really needing or have passion for, let that be where you volunteer. So you can reach out to an animal shelter and see, do they need volunteers around the holidays to spend time with the animals when things are more stressful or people are off? And a lot of people just think of things like the soup kitchen or shelters and that sort of thing. But what is it that helps you that you want to have that connection with? And then maybe start a new tradition, like hosting a small gathering or a virtual hangout for others who may not have family or friends that they are connecting with. And I want to acknowledge this. For those who may have loneliness or those who are extreme introverts, so I acknowledge there's introverts and extroverts. Reaching out to old friends or family members or volunteering or hosting a small gathering may not be in your wheelhouse as an introvert. And there is I acknowledge I'm not really an introvert. I do find places, times where I am. I do not want to be in a new environment. And there's been many times where I've pushed myself to do it. And in the long run, it ends up to being a great thing. And other times it's like, I didn't really connect with those people. But putting myself out there was a huge step in a lot of cases. Now I acknowledge an introvert may not even want to be taking that first step of putting themselves out there. But sometimes there's this book I read years ago, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. You never know what's going to happen. And what's the worst that could happen? If they don't like you, what's the big deal? You go back home and consider it something else next time. So, what are some of these wellness benefits in real life? So, I've mentioned some of the things in the past, or some of the things of having the times where you want to go out and be with people, the times where you don't want to go out and be with people. And there's times in my life, and my husband and I have been together for quite a long time. And over the years, we've had different friends come and go. And sometimes it feels like we're just stretching or forcing some friendships to remain in place. And it's okay sometimes to go ahead and let them go. Just because it worked in the past doesn't mean it's still working now. We had people we would hang out with for New Year's for many years, a couple, and then they are no longer a couple, at least not with each other. That changed our dynamic, and we didn't force anything other than we just pivoted and did something different for ourselves. There's other times where we had people we hung out with, and it really wasn't a healthy relationship. So we just went ahead and let that go, and it was okay. And while it was hard at the beginning, it's such a relief to not have to worry about finding times to get together with these other people sometimes. So, really reflect on how moments of connection, like sharing a meal, taking a walk, calling somebody, getting together in a very informal setting, can have big positive impacts on our mental and physical health. All right, so to wrap up here, if you haven't picked up on it, social connections are essential for health and happiness, especially during the holidays. So make sure you prioritize relationships that nourish you, balance social commitments with self care, and don't be afraid to set boundaries. If loneliness creeps in, remember there are ways to connect through volunteering, reaching out, or creating new traditions. And with that, that wraps this episode of the Real World Nutrition Podcast. I appreciate you for listening to this. Again, this is episode 168. I can't believe I'm coming up on 200 next year. So if today's episode was helpful, please follow or subscribe to the podcast, meaning you are whatever you're clicking to get the new download every Friday when you wake up. Share it with somebody if you want to have some extra connection this season. And whatever you're doing, whatever you celebrate, I wish you happy holidays, happy new year, and you take care. Bye for now.